Welcome to Coast Sports College Football Edition. I'm your host, Joey Caulo, and I'm joined by Jacob Lev and Ryan Sundeen. The college football season is sadly coming to an end. We have just 2 weeks of the regular season left. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into it, folks. Last week, disappointing for the Sun Devils. You start with a 14-point lead on the road at UCLA. You're expected to hold on and win that game. Didn't happen, kind of a collapse in the second half. Jacob, you were there for the game. Just give me a few takeaways you saw there in the Rose Bowl.
Well, I was there. It was very cold at the Rose Bowl. Didn't wear the proper clothes, but that's besides the point. So we started off really hot. We went up 14-0 really quickly, but we kind of tapered off a little bit. But our run game really picked up though. I feel like we didn't, keep going with it. We made Manny Wilkins throw the ball.
I was confused by the play calling as well. I mean, if you look at that first half, we were just gashing them, and then all of a sudden the second half is just the offense got lethargic. Didn't score a touchdown that entire fourth quarter, which hurts. Rosen just absolutely went off and didn't hurt him, but. I don't know. What'd you see, Ryan?
Josh Rosen's a really good player, so yeah, he did go off. But after having a 14-point lead, you can't lose that. I agree with the play calling. It should have been a little bit better. But what probably happened is they got lethargic with their team after that big head or big lead. And what they needed to do is just kind of run it out and play what they're normally playing, maybe involve some Sparky formation in there or what have you.
Yeah, I know. There wasn't much of a Sparky formation when you consider that you go into the game against UCLA. They're ranked 125th out of 128 teams at rushing. I mean, you should absolutely go after them. And it didn't happen after a while. Also, the time management. Time management, that's really not up to the players too much. That's mostly coaching. I mean, ASU's down 44-34, if I recall correctly, within the last few minutes of the game. And we're not running, the ASU's not running hurry up. Get down inside the 15-yard line and going in to score. And then all of a sudden, they're trying to hand off the ball and try to score. Well, if you don't, the clock keeps ticking. And all of a sudden, you kick a field goal. Then you kick off with a minute and a half left instead of running a hurry up and possibly trying to score, get that field goal earlier. And then you have, anyway, point of the matter is, that's coaching. That's up to Todd Graham, or that's up to the offensive coordinator, Billy Napier. They just didn't show up, and I don't know how. You're fighting. You're 5-4 going into that game. You're trying to make a bowl game. Your team should have every want and will, especially late in that game, to try to pull it off, get to 6 wins. It just didn't happen. But the good news for ASU is they've still had some standout players overall. I know you want to focus on good old number one, N'Keal Harry.
N'Keal Harry, he has been something amazing for us. I mean, I think without him, ASU wouldn't be where they're at right now. I know they're coming off of a loss, but he's the only wide receiver to start his first 22 games and have a reception in every single game. And he's 22 receptions away. There's 3 games left for this to break the record.
Possibly 3 games. You still got to win a game.
Yep. If we do make a bowl, if ASU does make a bowl game,
he'll have a shot.
N'Keal Harry does have a shot to break the all-time reception for ASU in a season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been a boss, and that makes me wonder too. The game plan definitely is centered towards him, but I can't tell you how many times where you say, oh, there's one on coverage, just throw it up to him, and it doesn't happen. Manny, a lot of times last night, if you got some pressure, instead of maybe just seeing N'Keal and giving him a chance, he'd run right back up into the pocket and get sacked or have a gain of only 1. It just seems like the offense isn't clicking. I think you got to get him involved. He's got to be involved this week against Oregon State, and he's got to be involved against Arizona next week. Do you have anybody in particular?
I mean, I was going to go into Manny Wilkins as well. I think he's just kind of being a little immature sometimes, going up into that pocket instead of passing
going
the ball.
Outside. You want to get outside around the corner and get the edge.
He's relying too much on his athletic ability as opposed to being a good pocket passer, which would actually help him out in the long run. But I think what goes back to is what you were saying earlier with Todd Graham. You got to coach this team up. They are 5-4. They are bowl eligible at the point. Can't you just keep that 14-point lead and go in to this next game with an easy win looking like against Oregon State, and then try it again with a rivalry game coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned Oregon State. They're 1-9. They're 0-7 in the Pac-12. I think their average margin of defeat in the Pac-12 is 17-point-something points per game. They're not good. The only game they came close to was against Stanford. on a Thursday night game where Bryce Love didn't play. So if you can't win this week and make a bowl and get eligible, get to 6-5, that magical mark, then you just, I don't know if Todd Graham should be around much longer because purely this is an effort game. If you show up, you got the better players on paper, you just got more athletes, you should be able to show up, you should be able to get a win in this game. But Oregon State, ASU hasn't won in Corvallis at Oregon State in the last 5 tries. So it goes back way, I think, since 2001, I want to say, somewhere around there, since the last time ASU went up to Corvallis. Last time was in 2014. ASU was ranked top 10 in the nation, number 6, I believe, and just laid an egg against a 5-7 Oregon State team. So you never know what could happen. But guys, what do you guys see happening tomorrow? It's going to be a 12 o'clock Pacific kick. What do you guys see in that day game?
Well, I'm happy to have a day game finally, so that'll be nice to see how the players react to it. But like you were saying, Oregon State, the Beavers are not that good, so hopefully the team for ASU will be able to go in there and kind of handle the game and not look forward to next week. That's what I think is the biggest problem for them, is looking forward to that rivalry game and not focusing on this week.
You want to be able to go into that Arizona game, obviously with some momentum, but obviously not to get the pressure off, but you just want to know you're making a bowl game going into that. You win this week, you're in a bowl no matter what, and then you can just focus on the rivalry and all the traditions of playing Arizona. What do you see, Jacob?
I do think that idea of if ASU does win this week and them being in a bowl game, I think that's going to help them beat this Oregon State team. I think we're going to break that streak for sure.
I think so.
I mean, it's going to be a little cold there. It's going to be 47 degrees, I think, at kickoff. So, it's a little cold for those Arizona State boys, but
As long as it's not wet and
as long as
rainy
it's not
or-
wet, it's going to be partly cloudy there.
I think it'll be all right.
I do think ASU will come out with a win this week and make it to a bowl game.
Give me a score.
I think it's going to be like a 3-touchdown game. I really do think Manny Wilkins is going to come out and he's going to show that last week was just a really bad week for him. And he's going to come out, he's going to, do like he did against Oregon or something,
Well, the thing is, he doesn't have to be great, but if you just manage the game. I mean, obviously, I think he only had that one pick last week, but just to be able to make the right decision, don't just run back up into the pocket. Go outside, try to dump it off, do something. He's a formidable quarterback, but he's got to improve on his decision making still. What do you see? Give me a score for tomorrow's game.
I'm going to go with 27-10. I think the defense will hold strong for ASU, and I think it might get a little out of hand in the second half if it's maybe 20-10, and they might get a late touchdown and just kind of bring it in, haul it in for the weekend, just figure out next weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Well, next weekend, of course, is going to be Thanksgiving, so we won't be here doing a coast-to-coast show. So let's go ahead and talk about that game against Arizona. It's going to be a 2:30 local Arizona time kick. I think usually you'd like to play a night game against a rival a little bit more amped up, but I think 2:30 is just fine. That should be late enough to where folks won't have a hard time getting ready for it. But Arizona obviously has Khalil Tate. Now, they've played way above their predictions were at the beginning of this season. I don't think too many people had them going to a bowl game. Right now, they're sitting at 7 wins. They could, if SC were to stumble against UCLA tomorrow, Arizona does have the potential to be Pac-12 South champions. And that's something that no one would have believed you if you said that at the beginning of the season, mainly because of Khalil Tate. Khalil Tate is going to give ASU trouble. He gives everybody trouble. But how do you see that game playing out next Saturday in the Territorial Cup? With Tate and everything surrounding that.
I hate to say it, ASU is going to have a hard time stopping Khalil Tate. USC has had a hard time stopping Khalil Tate. All these teams have had a hard time stopping him. He's a quarterback that is probably the best running back in college too.
He's the fastest guy on the field.
He's the fastest guy on the field. He's probably the best athlete on the field too. ASU has a hard time stopping with their run defense. They're going to have a hard time stopping Khalil Tate. That's going to be a very interesting matchup, I think.
And I know it's a week out, and a lot of it will depend on what injuries and what kind of happens tomorrow against Oregon State, but what do you see that score being next week?
I think U of A is going to come out and is going to score at least 40 points on ASU. I don't think ASU will be able to stop. And the offense is going to run through Khalil Tate too. So
Yeah. I mean, I agree with him. Khalil Tate's a great player. The more you were saying it, the more I was thinking he actually reminds me a lot of Terrell Pryor. He's a
That's a
really
good-
great
yeah.
athlete, and he just knows how to run. Best athlete on the field, and I guess they probably just made him quarterback so he could have the ball in his hand every play.
More or
But
less.
yeah, so pretty much we'll see for the score. I don't know if it's going to be as 40 points. I was thinking more 35, 27 round because it is a rivalry game, so
It
it will
will be a good
somewhat
game.
close. It
I
will be
think-
somewhat close.
I think no matter what, I mean, typically the saying I always apply is when it's a big rivalry game, throw the records out. Well, the records might be the same going into this one or very similar. But I think ASU, because it's a home game, if you look back at the Territorial Cup, it's just gone back and forth for the past 6 years. So whoever's been the home team has won. I think that's going to stay true next Saturday against U of A. I think one main guy to keep your eye on going into that game would be ASU, and ASU's defense is DJ Calhoun. He's a guy, he only has one recorded missed tackle, officially in the stats. There's only been one time where he was supposed to make a tackle and he didn't. If you have a guy like step up like that in the backfield, rush Khalil Tate, kind of get him off his tendencies, I think there's room for success. And let's face it, when you're facing a rival that you just lost to last year and then you lost to a year before that, you got to come out ready to play. I mean, you shouldn't come out and play flat at home against Arizona. They should be ready to play.
You know what that stat also says is after he's played Bryce Love and Rashad Penny that he was playing well, and that's experience that'll help him going into that U of A game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ASU has not had a weak schedule this year. I mean, still to right now, the latest FBI shows this is a top 10 hardest schedule in the nation. That's including SEC teams, your Big Ten teams, your ACC teams. As far as lineup week to week and going one after another, ASU has had a gauntlet of a schedule. So that's why it's important this week you play a weak Oregon State team. Don't play down to Oregon State. Just do what you do and get a win, get to 6-5 against Arizona.
Well said.
So that's gonna do it for our ASU coverage. Let's go into the big matchups in the NCAA. Obviously, we just have 2 weeks of the regular season left before the conference championship week, and then boom, we got our playoff set. So first, let's go ahead and touch on that playoff. There's unfortunately not too many games, ranked versus ranked teams tomorrow. Just one. Number 24 Michigan against number 5 Wisconsin. Just give me a prediction quickly on that game, and then go into where you see the playoff going out. Which, Wisconsin, if they want to make the playoff, they're going to have to run the table and win tomorrow. So where do you see that going, Jacob?
Well, I do think Wisconsin will beat Michigan tomorrow. Wisconsin's just the better team. I don't think there's been a more disappointing team than Michigan this year. Maybe, arguably.
Only 2 losses, but still.
But they still haven't performed up to
they
the
were
Jim
ranked number 4
Harbaugh
or
standards,
something.
Sure. I do think Wisconsin wins, and I think that's going to keep them. That's obviously going to keep them alive in the playoff hunt. But going on to the playoffs, I just don't know if Wisconsin will be able to beat the top 4 teams that are ranked right now.
So who are those top 4 teams?
Oklahoma, Clemson, Alabama, and
Winner of the Big Ten? Or?
winner of the Big Ten.
Okay, so
yeah.
either Wisconsin or an at-large bid from
Yeah, exactly,
Ohio
exactly.
State or
well,
something.
Ohio State, yeah,
Ohio
exactly.
State can still get in, for
Yeah.
sure.
Who do you think, Ryan?
I actually do think Wisconsin's going to run the table and get in there. I kind of agree with what you're saying, except for that last one. I think Wisconsin's going to be in there. They have the Clemson-Miami showdown, so that's a pseudo playoff game that they're going to have in the ACC if they both run the table. So we'll see. The game this week, I agree. I don't think Michigan's been that well. They haven't played that well. They weren't as physical as I once said earlier on the show this year. So I do think Wisconsin's going to run the table and keep winning. I think it's their year, and I think they'll finally get there.
I think this shapes up to where, actually, I'm going to go against that. I'm going to say Wisconsin's not going to make the playoff. And that's either going to be because they're either going to stumble this week against Michigan. Well, let's face it, Wisconsin is undefeated. They've had a weak schedule. They're on the weaker side. They're on the west side of the Big Ten. That's a little bit weaker schedule. I mean, I think their toughest game was probably last week against Iowa, which Iowa's been real up and down, and they show up one week and the next week they don't. So I'm really not buying the Wisconsin hype. I think the Big Ten is actually, for the first time in the history of the playoff, not going to get a team in. Because I think we're going to have a situation where Wisconsin's probably going to have 1 or 2 losses and everybody else is going to have 2 or 3. And I think they're going to go out because of the other teams we got going here. You got OU, who has the potential, if they were to win out, they would be 12-1 with 1 loss against the Iowa State team that's pretty good, with wins at Ohio State. With a lot of big conference wins, they'd have to win the Big 12 tournament. So I think OU's in there. Let's go ahead and write Bama in. I don't think as good as Auburn looked against Georgia, and as great and as hard as it'll be to Bama to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. I can't go against Bama. So we got Bama in there. We'll put OU in there at 2, let's say. I think Miami's going to run the table. I just think they got so much mojo going for them this year. They do have a trap game tomorrow against Virginia. I think they'll win out. I think they'll beat Clemson, get that 3rd spot. And then a team that no one has really mentioned about getting in the playoff that I really do think has some light left in them, it would be in Ohio State. I know I just said Big Ten might not get in, but I think Ohio State would be that Big Ten team because they are Ohio State. They always get a benefit of the doubt, let's face it, too. Who do you guys see winning the national championship?
It's hard to go against Bama. I mean, Nick Saban, you got to imagine that he's still furious about last year's national championship game. He's going to have this team that is loaded on defense. Minka Fitzpatrick, Ronnie Harrison, they're going to be ready. They're going to come out and play no matter who they play, if it's Clemson again or whatever. Nick Saban's going to have that Bama team ready to make it to the championship and win that championship.
You're going to go Bama. All right. What do you got?
Bama's good. I like Oklahoma. I like what they've done on the road, like what you were saying earlier, that big one against Ohio State. I think that says a lot. I do think Ohio State might get in on that dark horse chance because they won the very first college football playoff, so committee might award them for that. But to beat Bama this year, I'm not so sure. I think what you're saying, Jacob, is completely right. Their defense is like every Alabama defense, maybe better than some NFL defenses. Who knows?
Maybe.
And that offense just seems to score at the right times for them. And it's hard to stop them.
Yeah. As much as I'd like to answer this question and say the U is completely back and they're going to win it, it's really hard for me to go against an Alabama or an Oklahoma. Whoever wins that ACC championship game in a couple weeks, whether it be Clemson or Miami, could give Bama a real shot, but I think the best team to give Bama an upset would be Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield actually right now probably has the Heisman Trophy, which most of this, it was just a little bit over a month ago when they lost to Iowa State. I kind of was just like, all right, he's out of the picture, but he's played himself back in. Maybe the mojo from that, maybe we see an Oklahoma national championship. They haven't won since 2000, which when you consider how many times they've been ranked in the top 10, I think it's really been every year with the exception of maybe 3. They've gone without being ranked in the top 10 at some point late in the season. I mean, that's just a great program. And it'd be a heck of a story. Lincoln Riley in his first year would get a national championship. So just to disagree with y'all, say Oklahoma will win out and get that national championship and bring it home for them. Any last things you'd like to say? Any last upset predictions for the weekend?
No upsets, but the reason I don't trust Miami is they haven't played a good team on the road. So I don't know how they're going to do on the road. So that ACC championship game is going to be neutral, or is it?
It's neutral.
They
play
but
in
it's
Carolina.
in Charlotte. Yeah, that's right by Clemson. That's a home game for Clemson.
Miami will bring plenty of
they travel
fans.
well, and you'll see the chain out. But but I just don't trust Miami. I just wanted to get that across. What about you, Jake?
I agree with Ryan. Miami, they put a pounding on Notre Dame, and Notre Dame was in the playoffs before last week too. But I think these next couple weeks is going to be very interesting for Mark Wright and that whole University of Miami defense and stuff. So we'll see where this goes.
There's a lot to play out, and which is cool. Which I'd like to see is that most of these top teams play each other one way or another. We're going to get Bama, Auburn, or we're going to get Georgia back in there. We're going to get Miami, Clemson. So it'll settle itself out. What we're debating here really doesn't mean anything because they still got to play on the field.
It means everything.
Absolutely. And I'll end with this last thing, folks. I say ASU is going to finish the season 8-5. They're going to win out, beat Oregon State, beat Arizona. Looks like maybe make it to the Las Vegas Bowl is where they're kind of being drafted right now. I say they win that game too. Have some optimism around here, finish the season 8-5, and get it going moving into 2018. So that's going to be all the time we have for this week, folks. Be sure to check us out every Friday for the College Football Scoop. For Ryan Sundeen and Jacob Lev, I'm Joey Caulo. We'll see you next time.